The dying light of the sun painted the Texas horizon a deep red, bleeding into the land like a wound that would never close. The cicadas screamed in the brittle heat, and dust curled in little whirlwinds across the dying fields of Hollis Ranch. Eli Hollis sat on the porch, his weathered hands gripping a glass that hadn't seen water in days. The rye burned his throat, but it dulled the ache in his chest out the ache of watching a legacy rot in front of him. The ranch had been his father's, and his grandfather's before that. Now, it was slipping through his fingers, acre by acre, debt by debt. The land was tired, the soil was sour, and the cattle were thin as ghosts. He'd been to the bank that morning. The man behind the desk didn't even pretend to be kind anymore. "You're out of extensions, Eli," he'd said flatly. "You've got 30 days, or it's foreclosure." Eli had stared at the stack of papers, his pride scrapping raw in his chest. He'd worked this land his whole life. He'd bled for it, sweated for it, and now, it was being stolen by numbers on a page. When he rode home, the air felt heavier, the sky lower. Even the wind sounded like it pitied him. That night, when he saw the stranger's car pull up, headlights cutting through the twilight, Eli didn't think twice. The man who stepped out wasn't from around there. You could tell from the shine of his shoes. The dust didn't cling to him like it did to everyone else. He wore a black suit, crisp and clean, and his smile looked carved rather than born. He asked for Eli by name, like they already knew each other. "Heard about your troubles, Mr. Hollis," he said, voice smooth as silk but heavy with something Eli couldn't place. "I can fix them." Eli laughed, dry and bitter. "You a banker?" The man's smile never wavered. "Not exactly." He placed a single paper on the porch trailing a contract of some kind, edges too white for this dusty land. "Wants to save your land?" the man asked. "You already to broken bar, just do it." Eli frowned. The words made no sense. "Paid what?" he asked, but the stranger only tilted his head. "That doesn't matter now. Just do it, and you'll have what's yours again." His tone wasn't persuasive. It was final, the way a judge might speak before passing sentence. Eli didn't understand the offer, but his mind was too tired to care. He thought of Mary sleeping inside, of the years they'd poured into this ranch, of the promise he'd made his father at his deathbed they'd keep it alive, no matter what. So he nodded, hand trembling as he scrawled his name. The man's smile deepened, a faint glimmer of something sharp behind it. By the time Eli looked up again, the stranger was already walking toward the car. The taillights burned red in the dusk, fading down the dirt road until only dust remained. Eli stood there for a long time, the paper in his hand warm, as if it had a pulse of its own. He told himself it was nonsense, maybe some investor deal, some chance at a buyout, but deep down, something felt wrong. The crickets had gone silent, and the night air felt thick, like it was watching. He went inside, poured another drink, and told Mary everything would be fine soon. He didn't believe it, but it felt good to say. When midnight came, he woke to a soft sound, a paper sliding under the door. He found a folded note, old-fashioned handwriting in black ink. "Northfield, dig where the earth is soft." His breath caught. It was the same paper as the contract, too white, too clean. He stood there barefoot, staring at the words, heart pounding. Then something, a curiosity, fear, or madness, pushed him outside. He grabbed his shovel from the barn, lit the old lantern, and walked north. The wind had died completely. Only his boots crunched against the dirt as he crossed the field. The north pasture was where the land sloped toward the dry creek bed. No one went there much, too many rocks, too little grass. But as he reached the far fence, he noticed it, a patch of soil darker than the rest, soft like it had been turned recently. The note's words echoed in his head. "Dig where the earth is soft." Eli set the lantern down and pressed the shovel into the dirt. The earth gave way too easily. Shovel after shovel, he dug, sweat beating down his temples despite the cool night air. The smell changed from dust to something faintly sweet, like decay. When his blade hit something solid, he froze. He knelt and brushed the dirt aside. It was a wooden box, old but sturdy, about the size of a small trunk. His pulse raced. Maybe the man had hidden something, gold, money, the key to saving everything. He pried the lid open with the back of the shovel, wood splintering under his grip. The lantern light flickered as he leaned over. Inside lay a coiled rope, thick and new, and tied to it with a string was a paper tag. He squinted at the writing, only 2 words, written in the same black ink, Eli Hollis. His hands went cold. For a moment, the world tilted. He stared at the tag, then at the rope. He didn't understand, couldn't. The lantern flame trembled as if afraid to stay lit. He dropped the tag back into the box and stumbled backward, his breath coming in ragged gasps. That was when he heard the soft creak of the screen door from the house, swinging open in the windless night. His heart hammered against his ribs. Then came her voice, a soft, familiar, laced with sleepy confusion. Eli. Mary's silhouette appeared in the lantern glow, her nightgown fluttering slightly. "What are you doing out here?" He couldn't answer. Words stuck in his throat like splinters. The rope glimmered faintly inside the box, and something about it made his stomach twist. "Go inside," he managed, voice low, hoarse. "Please, just a broken bar, go back inside." She took a few hesitant steps closer, concern etched across her face. "You're shaking," she said softly. "What's wrong?" Eli's fingers tightened around the shovel handle until his knuckles went white. The air felt alive now, a humming, vibrating, filled with the faint whisper of words he couldn't fully hear. His mind screamed to run, to burn that box, to forget everything. But another voice, a lower, colder ray, was already whispering in his ear. "You already to broken bar, just do it." He blinked, sweat dripping into his eyes. The whisper grew louder, clearer, steady as a heartbeat. "Just do it." His hand trembled, but he couldn't stop. The world around him blurred out, the lantern, the dirt, the rope, Mary's face. Everything felt distant, like he was watching from somewhere outside his body. He opened his mouth to call her name, but the sound came out wrong, more like a sob. Mary took another step toward him, worry turning to fear. "Eli, you're scaring me, broken bar," she said. Then his hands moved. The whisper turned into a roar inside his head, and the night swallowed the sound that followed. The fields were quiet again when it was done. The wind had returned, brushing through the grass as if nothing had happened. The rope hung heavy, the lantern flickered weakly, and Eli stood there, empty, shaking, staring at what his hands had done. The note lay in the dirt, half buried now, the ink beginning to smear. "Northfield, dig where the earth is soft." He fell to his knees, the world spinning around him, his breath coming shallow and broken. Somewhere in the dark, he thought he saw a figure at the edge of the field, a black silhouette, watching from the fence line. The man in the suit. Eli's voice cracked the silence. "Why?" he whispered. "Why her?" The figure didn't move. The voice came again, a calm, cold, certain. Debt settled. Eli's eyes blurred with tears. "What did I pay for?" The man's shape seemed to fade with the wind, the words drifting back like smoke. "Your soul, rancher." Then he was gone, swallowed by the Texas night. The dawn came slow, gray and cold. The fields looked the same as they always had, but something in the air had changed, a heavier, quieter. Eli sat in the dirt, hat beside him, eyes empty. The rope creaked softly in the wind, keeping time with the whisper that would never leave him. "You already to broken bar, just do it." Eli's breath came in short, broken gasps as Mary stepped closer through the drifting mist. The lantern's light trembled across her face, innocent, worried, completely unaware of what was written on that cursed paper. He wanted to tell her everything, about the man, the deal, the note, but the words wouldn't come. They were trapped somewhere deep in his throat, strangled by fear. "Go inside, Maria, broken bar, please," he whispered, his voice cracking like dry wood. She paused, her eyes searching his face, confusion turning to concern. "You're scaring me," she murmured, her bare feet brushing against the dirt as the night air hung heavy between them. The wind carried a low hum, almost too quiet to notice, but it trapped around Eli like a living thing. The whisper, that same dark voice he'd heard before, slid through his skull like oil. "You already to broken bar, just do it." His pulse thundered in his ears, and the world seemed to shift, the ground breathing under his boots. The rope in his hands felt alive now, pulsing faintly, coiling tighter like it wanted to finish the job itself. Eli dropped it, stumbling back, shaking his head. "No," he hissed. "I didn't agree to this." But the voice didn't care for bargains anymore. Mary reached out a hand toward him, her fingers trembling. "Eli, talk to me." she pleaded softly. "What's happening to you?" He looked at her. He really looked, and in that moment, she wasn't just his wife. She was the last good thing in a world gone rotten. But behind her face, behind those eyes filled with fear and love, he saw the shadow of the man in black, smiling, waiting, as though watching from inside her skin. The whisper grew louder, pressing against his skull, twisting into a command that wasn't made of words anymore but hunger. His vision blurred, and his knees went weak as the darkness crawled up from the ground. The lantern sputtered, the light dimming until the field seemed to sink into itself. Mary's voice echoed, distant now, as if from another world. "Eli." He felt something seize control, an invisible force clutching at his chest, guiding his hands. He wanted to fight it, to run, but his muscles no longer obeyed. The whisper had turned into chant, rhythmic and sure. "You already paid. Just do it. You already paid. Just do it." His mind screamed against it, but the body moved. He stepped forward, reaching for her, not as a husband but as a man hollowed out by something ancient and merciless. A single tear rolled down his cheek before the scream tore through the air. The sound split the night like a blade, short, sharp, final. It was Mary's voice. Maybe his too, he couldn't tell anymore. Then silence swallowed everything. Even the crickets stopped. The lantern flame died completely, leaving the world to the moonlight and the soft sway of the rope, now used. Eli stood there, frozen, his heart pounding but not really beating, just echoing against the emptiness left inside him. He fell to his knees, the dirt cool beneath his fingers, the smell of iron thick in the air. Time lost all meaning. Maybe minutes passed. Maybe hours. The stars faded one by one as dawn crept over the horizon, pale and uncaring. Eli's eyes burned from the tears he didn't remember shedding. His clothes were soaked in sweat, his hands trembling uncontrollably. He wanted to scream her name, to wake up from whatever nightmare this was, but the stillness around him told him the truth. It wasn't a nightmare. It was the deal. He'd done the unthinkable, and the price had been paid. The whisper had stopped, but its absence hurt worse than its presence. Now there was only guilt, heavy and suffocating. As the first light of morning stretched across the field, Eli saw him as the man in black, standing by the fence. His figure was sharp against the pale sky, hat tipped low, a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Eli's throat tightened. "Why?" he rasped. His voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. The man didn't answer at first. He stepped closer, his boots silent against the dirt. "Debt settled," he said finally, almost gently, as though he were speaking to a child who didn't yet understand the rules of the world. Eli shook his head violently. "What debt? What did I pay for?" The man tilted his head, that strange, endless calm never breaking. "You asked to save your land," he said softly. "You asked for your legacy, your name, your pride. You wanted to keep what was yours, and you paid." Eli's voice cracked. "With her?" he whispered, eyes wide, disbelief shattering into horror. "No, that ain't right." The man's faint smile widened. "Just a fraction. You paid with what mattered most. That's how all true bargains work, Mr. Hollis. There's always balance." He tipped his hat, turning slightly toward the horizon. "And now, it's done." Eli staggered to his feet, rage and grief colliding in his chest. "You tricked me," he shouted, his voice raw. The man paused but didn't turn around. "I didn't trick you," he said calmly. "I only reminded you already paid." The words hung in the air like smoke, impossible to grasp. Eli took a step forward, fists clenched, but the stranger was already fading, dissolving into the morning light as though he'd never been there at all. When he was gone, the silence returned, heavier than before. The wind began to move again, gentle at first, then stronger, whistling through the fence posts. Eli turned back toward the north field. The rope swayed gently from the branch, creaking with each gust. The sound carried far across the pasture, through the barn, to the empty porch where they'd once sat together in the evenings, dreaming of better days. The world looked the same, but it wasn't. Every corner of it was soaked in what he'd done. He sank to his knees again, burying his face in his hands. The dirt beneath him was soft, just as the note had said, soft because it was full of death. His wife, his soul, his promise, all buried in the same cursed earth. The morning stretched on. The sun rose higher, burning the mist away, but it couldn't warm him. The ranch lay still, too still. Even the birds avoided the place now, circling wide before vanishing into the trees. Eli sat motionless, eyes fixed on the rope. It moved with the rhythm of his guilt, creaking softly in the wind. Each sound was a reminder, each gust a whisper. "You already to broken bar, just do it." He could still hear it, even now. It lived in his blood, in his breath, in every broken piece of him that the deal hadn't taken. The ranch was his again, but there was nothing left to save. He stayed there until night fell once more, staring at the dark horizon. The stars blinked to life above him, cold and indifferent. Somewhere far off, a coyote howled, but the sound only deepened the emptiness. Eli rose slowly, his legs stiff, his mind numb. He walked to the barn, passing the empty stalls, the rusting tools, the cracked water trough. Everything he'd worked for surrounded him, hollow and dead. The land had its price, and he'd paid it in full. He picked up the same shovel from the night before and walked back to the north field. The soil waited, a soft, dark, ready. Under the pale moonlight, Eli dug again, not because he wanted to, but because he couldn't stop. The whisper was back, gentle now, coaxing like an old friend. "Just do it." Each thrust of the shovel felt heavier, slower, deeper. He didn't know what he was digging for anymore, a forgiveness, maybe, or punishment. When the hole was deep enough, he dropped the shovel and looked up. The rope still swung above him, creaking softly. The wind picked up again, and he almost thought he heard her voice in it, faint, distant, calling his name. For the first time since the deal, Eli smiled. As the dawn approached once more, the Hollis ranch fell silent again. The wind died. The sun rose over the horizon, painting the field red like the first night. Two shapes hung from the old oak now, one still, one swaying gently in the breeze. The land looked peaceful, almost beautiful, as if nothing terrible had ever happened. But for miles around, not a single bird sang. And if you stood by the fence in the early morning light, you might still hear it, a faint whisper carried through the grass. "You already to broken bar, just do it."